Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Today, we're diving into the entrepreneurial ocean with the legendary Marc Mawhinney, an expert at helping coaches reel in clients without casting any ad nets. From his enchanting Natural Born Coaches podcast to the thriving Coaching Jungle Facebook group, Marc's heart-led business wisdom is as bountiful as a fruit tree in full bloom. So let's swing into his story and uncover the secrets of nurturing a thriving coaching community without paid ads. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. And I've never been called legendary or enchanting, so I'll take it.
Well, let's live up to that expect as well. You know, I'm so interested in the natural born coaches kind of idea, and we're going to dive really deep into that today. But first, what's your definition of a heart-led business?
I was thinking about this after we first connected, and full disclosure for me, I'm not like a woo-woo guy. I'm not a super, So there's some people in my world, like heart-led business, they give you probably more of that standard type answer. Like Terry Levine, she's great. She's a past JV partner of mine. All her stuff, she's got the heart, with the hands and everything. If I was doing that, people would say, what's Marc on? What the heck's he doing? So I view it a little bit different, where I'm a little bit more meat and potatoes than maybe mushy. But the way I view it, and I've always thought of with heart-led, is as simple as treating people the way you want to be treated. So when it comes to the coaching world, of course, it's full of people making these enormous promises, and they're promising $1 million in a month, and you're not going to have to work hard. Or they're doing certain things, which I've heard this story so many times, when people have been on a call with a closer or someone from that person, another person's team, and that they're just so anxious to get the sale before that call's done, and they're trying to get them to max out their credit card. And I remember one past client, before she joined my program, was telling me one of those horror stories, and the person at the team said, she said, I have to talk it over with my husband. This is a big purchase. It was like tens of thousands of dollars. And, we have to discuss these things. And he said, oh, no, just put it on your card. Keep it a secret from him. Then in 30 days, you'll have a whole pile of money. You can pay off the card. You got a bunch left over, and he'll be thanking you. That, when I think of heart-centered, it's the opposite of that type of manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that, bringing the golden rule in, help or do unto others as you would have them do.
Crazy concept, but
crazy.
Well, with the online space, what we have to remember, it sounds funny to say this, it's people who are on the other side of the screen. I think that we're used to seeing social media, profiles or whatever with a little tiny picture, and we tend to not, it's easy to forget that, hey, it's a human being on the other side too. So put yourself in their shoes. That should be, I think, 101 for anyone.
Yeah, I think you've really nailed it there, that we've lost that human connection a lot online, especially for those, keyboard warriors that love to, be behind the anonymity and make those comments on somebody's YouTube channel. Maybe it was mine. And it's wild. Just
if they're face to face with you, they would never say that. And fingers crossed. I hope that there's the tide's turning, and we'll see some different ways for people behaving. But back in the old days, I say the old days, early 2000s, even if someone was saying bad stuff about you, you wouldn't hear about it because of being behind closed doors. Or Tom, who's a couple thousand miles away from me or something, I wouldn't know, or you wouldn't be, not that you'd do this. I mean, Tom's a bad example. We'll say Mike across the world, he wouldn't be able to troll Marc in Canada, or whatever. Now it's so easy. If you got internet access, 10 seconds. And what do they say? Hurt people.
Exactly. Yeah. And now when I see those comments on my channel, I just kind of ignore them and bless and release them, as it were. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your business and why you consider it heart-led.
So my whole business, I've been doing it since 2014. So I'm coming up on 11 years, which I
Wow.
can't believe it. Sometimes it feels like 3 years. Other times it feels like 30, but it's 11.
Right.
And my whole business is helping coaches grow their businesses. That's who I help. Anyone else who comes to my world, if they sell widgets or they do some other type business, they need help, I refer them off. I stay in my lane, so to speak. I think the name of my business ties into the theme of your show, probably in a way, with natural born coaches. A lot of the people who gravitate into my world feel like they were born to do this. They were the ones that in high school, other kids were, coming to them for support, and they were great listeners and born leaders as well. And that's how it's funny how it worked out when I was coming up for a title for business, a podcast, everything else. I wanted something that really quickly, it's funny how it happened, but I wanted something with the keyword in there, coach, coaches, coaching, whatever. And I went through the Billboard Top 100 songs from, this was 2014. So I went back to 1990, like, whatever, 25 years. And I was inserting the keywords into a bunch of songs and band names that's, because I was at a loss. I couldn't come up with the name any other way. Nothing worked there. I did have newcoachesontheblock.com at one time. I'm embarrassed to admit it's available now if you want to grab it, Tom.
I love that. I might.
Yeah, so no luck on the music scene, then went to the movies and went through the top movies every year, 2014, 2013, 2012. And I got down to whatever, 1995, Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers, inserted coaches in there. I thought, oh, geez, that just really clicked. And then I had any entrepreneur knows this is the most nerve-wracking 10 or 20 seconds. You rush to GoDaddy or whichever place you go to get your websites from URLs, and you punch it in and you just pray that it's not taken, and it wasn't taken. And here we are today, but that's how the name came about.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Back in the day, we used to just look at the LLC register or the corporation register to see if the name was taken. Now you have to go to the web, and it's funny how things evolve and change over time.
Well, my past life's in real estate. So for about a decade through my 20s, I sold real estate and had my own company and stuff. And I was telling someone today, because she's taking her real estate license, and that came up in conversation. And I said, oh, I took mine back in 2000. And I made the joke. I said, we used stone tablets and we were carving into them. I said, then we had a team of dinosaurs haul the tablets to the real estate board to mark them or whatever. But it does feel like a different time, because back then, my first year in real estate, I had a pager that went on my belt, and I'd be driving around the city. I always had to have a whole cup full of whole quarters, because if I got a page from a client, I'd have to go to a convenience store to use a payphone. If any younger people are watching this, like, what's a payphone? And it sounds so antiquated. Now I end up getting a cell phone, I think in 2001 or whatever, shortly after. But I tell my son this all the time. I had to carry a whole bunch of quarters in case I had to call a client back then.
He was probably thinking, oh, you could do laundry or something.
Yeah, he has no clue. He's 16 now, and he has no clue. I've become the person I said I'd never be. Like, I used to walk uphill both ways to school barefoot in the snow and all that. I'm the crusty old guy now.
I think I am too. Some days are better than others. But tell me, how did you then get into the coaching business? What was that transition like for you?
So I mentioned my past life was in real estate. I ended up building up a good sized company. Everything was going great until it wasn't going great. It collapsed. And not that there's ever a good business closure, but it was a messy business closure, because it wasn't a case that I was 65 or 70 and had been planning for it to close or whatever. It was bang, hit a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. And so I spent a rough couple of years, I say in the wilderness, not literally, but figuratively, because throughout my 20s, it was hockey stick growth. I'm Canadian, so I use a hockey stick metaphor, but I never failed. And it was just everything worked. I now worked my butt off, but it was just grow with real estate. And suddenly when you go through a business closure and all this stuff, and especially when you've tied your identity into your business, which I've learned, there's a tip I'll give people, is keep the two separate. You're not your business. If your business fails, that's not you, But anyways, yeah, so I was a couple of years of just, lost and did not want to go back into real estate, but I also am incapable of working a 9 to 5 office job. I'd go crazy. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? And so I end up working with a few coaches. And I didn't know much about coaching before this, by the way, and because it was pretty new back then. We're talking, it was around, I know, since the 90s, but for the most part, it wasn't, like it is today. And I thought, wow, I've seen how this is helping me work with coaches. I thought this would be a great business to be in, work from anywhere, you work from your laptop or whatever. And that's what got me thinking about it. I jumped in and here we are.
Oh, that's very cool. That's interesting that you didn't coach before. So what is it that you're providing to your clients that's unique and different?
Well, it's funny. I was coaching for years without realizing it with my real estate team because I was coaching my agents, because I had sold a lot of houses, learned a lot, and I was coaching them, but I never thought of it as coaching. Something I thought was really interesting was a person came into my real estate office probably 06, 07. And my assistant said, Mark, there's someone here to see you. And he had seen my signs around and ads and everything. And he was a business coach, which back then, like, what the heck's a business coach? Do people hire coaches? And he was trying to get my business. And me being in my 20s and, just cocky, full of piss and vinegar, heard him out for a couple minutes or whatever, but then sent him on his way. And when the business closed, I thought, wow, I probably should have listened to a little more, But anyways, that's, life's easier when you look in the rearview mirror, Monday morning quarterback.
Sure.
To answer your question, what do I do different with my business or so? What I like to think is that I'm giving the coach I work with everything they need to build a successful business, but I'm not making that promise of you're going to have a 7-figure business in the next 30 days working 5 minutes a day. So I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realistic optimist, which sometimes it's not great in the online space because you're competing with these people that are making outlandish BS claims. And so then you're going out there. Like I had a client once who we were working together and she was able to transition from had a 9 to 5 job and doing her coaching on the side. And after 6 months, she was able to quit her job and start coaching full time. And I congratulate her. And she's like, I don't know why it took so long or whatever. And I'm like, look for, if you're, look in the real world. You're not the internet marketer, big. You said to most people, how would you like to transition from your job into a coaching business that you love in 6 months? They'd be like, sign me up. But somehow we think it's a bad thing because we're so jaded by the hopium that's being sold out there in the online space.
I love that term. I've not heard that before. Hopium.
I didn't come up with it. So and I love that. And I also love douchepreneur, which I have not come up with. There's lots of douchepreneurs in the online space as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that whole advice, like burn the boats and go all in and you just hustle, and it'll make it happen. I think it's complete BS and is really doing people a great disservice. That 6 months gives her enough time to plan and create and just be ready if things go south a little bit, but going right in would have been disastrous, I'm sure.
I get the concept of burn the boats and I know what the whole thing means, but if you quit your job today, then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm going to need a coaching client in the next week or I'm not going to eat, or I got to pay car payment, got to put a roof over my head or so on. And that's going to lead to bad choices because, for example, you have a potential client who's a walking red flag that's going to be a pain in the butt to work with that you should not be working with. It's like, I need to bring something in. So I always tell people don't do that. Do you remember the scene in Jerry Maguire when Tom Cruise's character, and he's like, who's with me to the whole office? And the only one that would go with him was Renee Zellweger. Remember he takes the fish. He's like, I bought this. This is my goldfish or whatever. You don't want to do the big Jerry Maguire scene, like a dramatic, tell your boss to go F himself or herself. And then all of a sudden you're stuck. When I built my coaching business, when I started it, I had a sales gig, was basically working from home for a telecommunications company here in Canada. There's 2 of us in the province. Great gig. It was a couple hours a day to get the work done or whatever, and then I would work on my coaching. But I
Oh,
wanted to wait until the coaching got rolling before I said to the employer, okay, I'm all done. And it was about 11 months, I think, that I ended up switching over full time to coaching. But it would have been a much different story if I quit after a week or two. It would have been pretty stressful.
oh, totally. I did the same thing when I transitioned from corporate into fitness. I took a year to do all the planning and
Yeah.
kind of create the business and get all ramped up. Yeah, I remember, I think it was Tony Robbins during one of his seminars. He said people overestimate what they can do in a year and drastically underestimate what they can do in 10.
Yeah. Love
I
it.
think that's, yeah, and I think it's a nice reminder that one, take your time to do it and do it right and do what feels good for you. And you're not going to get in those situations where you have that walking red flag client. I certainly have been there. And because that really does just drain. It costs more than if you hadn't taken the client in the first place.
Yeah, and if you're rolling out of bed in the morning and you look at your calendar and it's, oh, geez, I got a call with Mary at 2 o'clock, and you just do not get along with her, and you get that pit in your stomach, that's not good. There's
Yeah.
actually a great book I'm reading I'll recommend for your people. It's speaking of
Oh,
time and concept of time and everything. Have you heard of 4,000 Weeks? I think it's Oliver. Is it Berkman? It's Oliver something. Anyways, it's called 4,000 Weeks because that's what most people live. If you multiply 52 weeks a year times, what you're living. And
wow.
I won't spoil it or, steal the thunder, but it's an excellent book around the concept of time. And his whole argument is basically there's these productivity nerds, because he used to be one, that are all about getting more and more done and will get to work earlier and cross all stuff off the to-do list, but never going to get ahead because they're just going to pour more stuff in there. And that book's about deciding what's important and then getting the important stuff done, but being comfortable with letting the other stuff go.
Oh, that's great. We'll link all that up into the show notes as well. Look at the author and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's great because I know a lot of people just really struggle with that. Now, with the heart-led business people, and I'm sure a lot of the coaches that you work with are heart-led businesses, what type of advice do you give them around the business side of coaching? Because I know from just personal experience and also a lot of people that I speak to, a lot of heart-led people struggle with that business side. So how do you help them with that?
So I started in 2014, and I didn't realize how messed up a lot of coaches are heart led too around money until 2015. I was doing an online summit, and it was all around charging more for your coaching. And I called it the Command Higher Coaching Fees Summit. I got some interesting messages from a few people and comments like, this is awful. Coaching is about money. And like, I was like, I don't know, cross between Gordon Gekko and J.R. Ewing. I don't know who else. And I was like, wow, this is really weird. I thought everyone would be on board about this. I do see a lot of coaches have messed up opinions around money, where they feel guilty somehow. If they're making money, they're doing something wrong. They're taking it from someone else. And it's something to get around, because if you have those feelings, you may not even realize you have them. They could be buried deep down below, but that's going to affect your results. So it's interesting where I host a podcast as well. I was speaking to a guest once, and this goes back to money beliefs. Guest was doing 100K plus launches, doing like really, really well. And what she realized, whenever she went into a store to shop, she would gravitate towards the discount rack, because she grew up poor and earlier in her life, and she was just always used to doing that. And she never realized it until it just hit her one day. Oh my God, I just always go to that discount rack. Another coach I know was always keeping her thermostat really down because her power had been cut off, when she was younger and stuff. And she always kind of struggled, and she'd be the type, she'd be put on 3 pairs of socks, a couple sweaters instead of turning the heat up. And that's why. So yes, coaches that definitely need to fix the money stuff that's bouncing around in their noggin.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find that they're struggling with the balance between being heart-led and the business side and being okay with accepting money? Like what is that kind of thought process going through besides, the struggle with, having that whole money mindset an abundance mindset?
I think a lot of it comes from society and the messages that they're being fed every day. So look at Hollywood, for example. More often than not, the main villain in a movie is usually a capitalist, right? It's a greedy capitalist. It's so the kids have their baseball field in small town USA, and the greedy capitalist wants to steal it from them to put a toxic waste dump or something there, right? Or whatever. So they see it not just there, like I see it in politics too. You're seeing, on Twitter and different places, hashtag eat the rich, and it's just the rich are evil and all this other stuff. And of course, there's bad rich people, there's bad poor people as well. But they've taken a lot of that in, I believe, and they don't want to be in the same camp as the greedy capitalist who's stealing the kids' baseball field and polluting the town or something. They feel that way. I'll also say that it's often the people who claim to not care about money who are the greediest, most hypocritical people. So you've probably seen in the online space where, oh, don't put your wallets away. I don't care about money. It makes it sound like they almost don't want to, make money. They're trying to push away, but in reality, they're like the greediest SOBs out there. So I shouldn't say it. I'm a little bit jaded being in the online space so long, but I take the approach. My rule of thumb online is everyone's full of it until they've proven me wrong, proven me otherwise. And yeah.
And has that boded well for you?
I think so. The challenge building a business online, and this, is it would be very easy to spend multiple six figures on this ninja, solution, this magic bullet or whatever. And I actually know people who've spent over 100K without getting clients before, and I feel that awful for them because they're like, which you think, how can you spend that kind of money? Well, 15K for this copywriter or this much for a funnel expert and Facebook ads here or whatever. And I don't recommend doing that. One of the advantages for when I started my business is I say not on a shoestring budget. It was on a dental floss budget. And at first I thought that was a negative because the reason my real estate business grew so much is I was always dumping more and more money into marketing. Again, this was the Stone Age, but I was sending out thousands and thousands of postcards every month to my local market, radio ads, all this other stuff with print. And I was frustrated when I started coaching because I don't have that war chest to put into Facebook ads or whatever. And looking back now, I realize it was actually a positive because it forced me to roll up my sleeves. I couldn't just hire people to write copy and do all this other stuff. I had to do it myself. And actually, fun fact that's happening today, I had to calculate it, but today's my 3,200th, so 3,200 straight day of emailing my list daily because I started that practice. But that built a lot of discipline, that consistently posting content. The podcast is up to almost 1,000 episodes. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I was just trying to buy my way through everything in the early stages.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. And I think that bodes well for a lot of the heart-led business folks as well, that they might be scared, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a little scared about putting their name out there, putting a lot of marketing out in case that too many people might come into their orbit and then sign up for their program, and then they're making all this money, and then it's kind of, they're have that mindset that if I have the money, that's not good because evil people have money, but I don't have money now. So how do I get money? And that whole dichotomy it's takes so much energy in the brain because I used to be there and it's not a good place to be.
Well, you mentioned something earlier about YouTube comments. So what they're seeing is, oh, geez, Tom got troll comments here on this because he's, out to a lot of people. And in the back of their mind, they're holding back because they're thinking, if I get to be successful and out there and stuff, that I'm going to be attacked by strangers in their mom's basement eating a bag of Doritos or Cheetos, keyboard warriors. So you have to get around that. That was one advantage of the business closure was I was called every name in the book from people I didn't even know. And I had my local media running me down and everything. Not saying it wasn't all deserved, by the way. I would change some things for sure. But the advantage for that was it gave me a bit of a thicker skin because, I've been called every name out there. So if some stranger halfway across the world calls me something, I'm not going to lose sleep.
Yeah. So when you're working with a coach that has a really bad money mindset and is having difficulty kind of reconciling the business side with being heart-led, what do you tell them to help them change that mindset?
I find the best solution for it is for them to make money because then they realize, see, this isn't that bad. Same thing where I find sometimes there's friction. Often there's friction between spouses. If one wants to become a coach, the other one who's working 9 to 5 and just sees money going out and not much money coming in, that's going to cause some issues around the dinner table. And I always say the best solution to pacify or please a spouse is start making money, because when you're starting to bring in a good, being compensated well for what you do, then that's going to definitely make things easier. I also think so getting paid is one way to get around those money issues. But also when you start, you sit back and realize that you're not going to do any good if you're poor. I always say you can't coach on an empty stomach. So if you're trying to coach and you got bill collectors calling and you've got, the bills bouncing and everything else, it's kind of hard to focus on your client and do the best job for them. When your bank account is full, you're feeling peaceful, relaxed, you're going to be a much better coach as well.
Yeah, and that is totally true. I know in my fitness business, when the times I was really struggling, I was just a terrible coach and trainer because I was just thinking like, oh, is that landlord going to put locks on the door today?
Is my car still out there? Did it get hauled away? Yeah. Life of an entrepreneur. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. All those, it's a roller coaster, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Of course.
No, there's Ryan Doris, I believe it is, Stephen Kotler's partner. They do stuff together. I was watching a YouTube video where he says that entrepreneurs need a certain amount of VUCA. I think it is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But you only have so much VUCA to go around between two. You have two, if you think of it as cups to fill, your personal life and then your business. So if your personal life has a ton of VUCA, you're dating a crazy person that's like setting your clothes on fire and kicking you out of the house and all that other stuff, you need like if you're at an 80 VUCA for your personal life, then you only want to be at a 20 with your business. You don't want to be too much of a roller coaster because you're going to go crazy. On the flip side, if in your personal life, whether it be your partner or maybe you're just the hermit, you're not doing much, not getting much excitement, you then have more room to have VUCA in your business side of things too. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
Oh, that is a great concept. I like that.
Hopefully you're 50-50. I'll send you the link later if you want to include it in show notes or if you want to check it out. I'm pretty sure I can find that video for you. He explains it much better than I, but I thought, wow, that's a really cool concept.
Yeah. We'll definitely link that up into the show notes. I think that'll help a lot of people just kind of get that understanding of the balance that needs to be made between the personal life and the business life. Well,
yeah, will do.
Yeah, cool. Well, Marc, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom, and especially the balance between the business and the heart-led piece of it. How can people learn more about your coaching services and what you do?
Best spot is naturalborncoaches.com. That's a central hub. Also have a Facebook group. There's 27,000-ish coaches in there. So it's The Coaching Jungle. You can get there at thecoachingjungle.com.
All right, cool. We'll link all that up into the show notes as well. And Marc, thank you again so much for being on the show today. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you for the invite.
No worries. And to our show listeners, thank you for listening to the show today. I really do appreciate it. Or watching the show if you're on YouTube. But let's make sure that you are checking out everything that Marc's doing, and we're going to provide that all down in the show notes. So just click on the little show notes link and get all of that information. And if you could do me a solid favor and do what other smart and considerate listeners are doing, and that's giving us a rating and a review so that we can share the show with more people and make sure that they get the idea that business can be heart-led and you can make money doing it at the same time. So until next time, lead with your heart.
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.